So that's the first of the 5 propositions. The second of the 5 propositions, number 2. I'll switch my colors. Number 2, here's what Foucault has to say. He says, relations of power are not in a position of exteriority, outside, right? Relations of power are not in a position of exteriority with respect to the other types of relationships, economic processes, knowledge relationships, sexual relationships. They have a directly productive role when it comes into play, right? It is not the case that when we talk about power, that we have power as existing outside, right? This is not the case. It is also not the case that we have power as existing inside. That's not the case. What Foucault is saying is that power is everywhere, right? It is both internal and external. It is emergent and convergent, right? Power exists in all places, right? It's not external to some structure. It's not internal to some structure. Power, in a sense, is, right? So, relations of power are not in a position of exteriority with respect to other types of relationships, economic relationships, knowledge relationships, sexual relationships. They have a directly productive role to play when it comes to play. All right. Top of page 10. Next page. So the synthesis of this idea, right, of externality. The synthesis is power plays a directly productive role in economic. Right. He talked about the economy. Power plays a directly productive role in economic, epistemological, knowledge-based, and sexual relationships, right? This role is not exterior to the relationship. All I'm doing is sort of restating what Foucault has said, right? So power plays a directly productive role in economic, epistemological, meaning knowledge-based, and sexual relations. This role is not exterior to the relationship, but constitutive. It constitutes, right? It's not something that comes from the outside in. It's not something that comes from the inside out. It's something that serves as the substrate, the foundation with which it constitutes, but constitutive to the nature of the relationship. The power relation helps in formalizing and defining the relationship. The relationship of power defines the nature of the relationship. What does that mean, right? When we're talking about number 2, what does that mean to say that the power relationship defines the relationship? Right? Power defines the relationship. What does that mean? So here's the movement-specific note, and hopefully it will help make sense of sort of the importance of that claim. Assuming the Occupy movement were fully realized, it has become what it is trying to become, right? And we know that that differs for many, many people, right? But assuming it rises to its highest height of power, whatever that is. Assuming the Occupy movement were fully realized, how would it enact a newly attained economic power? Remember, on the social nexus, other social movements vying for that position, Occupy movement makes its way into the position, it jockeys, makes its way into position, and now it is going to, quote-unquote, usurp the existing economic status quo. It's in that position. What does it do? Recognizing that no matter what, now we can get more conceptual because I think you should be able to follow along. Recognizing that no matter what it does, no matter how it's motivated, to create a better social, economic institution or system, the new system in place, the new economic system in place, if Foucault is right, and he is absolutely right, is going to be inherently in a non-egalitarian relationship with other emergent economic systems. It's going to try to protect its position. Isn't it the case then that the function of the occupation movement at its highest height, when it has become the new economic system, will be exactly the behemoth that it is attempting to oppose, that it is attempting to eject. I recognize absolutely fully that this lecture series is dated. And I recognize fully that 20, 25, 30 years from now, if the occupation movement actually manifested itself as a real viable, at least in part, economic movement, there's going to be a new social economic movement that wants to depose the current monolith, the occupation movement. And people will say, Dr. Campbell, look how wrong you were for voicing your defense and encouragement for the occupation movement. Look what it's become. What they don't recognize is that I already see, because I've read enough of Foucault to recognize that it will, the occupation movement will, if it's successful, move from an oppositional force, secure itself, become the status quo, and guess what I'll be doing if I'm still around? I will be voicing my support for the new movement to eject the status quo, which is now the occupation movement, if that makes sense, right? The point is, I don't care about any specific movement. What I want you to recognize is that this is the cyclical process of attempting, you can even do this in terms of non-monotonic logic, to get a little technical, is that we have the best new information now, and the best new information now is better than the old information, so let's supplant the old information with the new. The occupation could potentially become that new best information. It's not there yet, but it could be the best new information. Once it is, put it into place. But then it will, by default, enter into a non-egalitarian relationship in an attempt to suppress and silence rivals. And that's going to go on for a number of years until it's so powerful that rivals are willing to risk everything to oppose the now antiquated status quo occupation movement years down the road. It won't be any contradiction at all 20, 30 years down the road for me to do a lecture series talking about opposing and outing the occupation movement for some new social movement, because that's my function, right? My function isn't about the movement. My function is about demonstrating the pattern of social transformation. And I don't think there's a better way of demonstrating the pattern of social transformation than recognizing, as Foucault says, that the non-egalitarian distribution of power throughout the social nexus is perpetually in a state of transformation, a perpetual influx of the new, a perpetual disposal of the old, and this is what it is. This is what it is, right? So, how would it enact its newly attained economic power? It can't simply be to do away with the current economic system, can't define something in terms of what it's not, right? You can't just say, well, the occupation is not this, right? The occupation is not about corporate greed. The occupation is not about benefiting the 1%. The occupation is not about X, right? Because as I've done in my lecture series on feminism, you can't define something in terms of its negation. If I tell you something is not a car, it's not a tree, it's not a house, it's not a toothbrush, you have no idea of what that thing is. You know what it's not, but you don't know what it is. The only way for me to intelligibly describe what something is by to give you affirmative accounts of the properties that adhere, that exist within the thing, right? So the thing is electrically powered. The thing is a console. The thing is an electrically powered console in which you play video games. Then you say, you know, what color is it? And I say that it's white. And then you could probably say it's an Xbox. Or I say it's black. And you say or it could be a PS2, right? And on and on and on. You get the idea. The nerds love stuff like that. So you get the idea. It's not just about what the occupation movement is not, because I then still don't understand what it is. The only thing to make sense of what it is by to definitively say, as I said before, we are strong because we ... We believe this, we believe that, we do this, we do that. This is who we are, right? There must be a productive, constitutive economic role the movement will play when fully realized. What is that role? also recognizing that